She mistook a billionaire heir for her driver. That mistake changed everything. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The soft hum of conversation filled the golden lobby of the St. Regis Hotel in Paris. Crystal chandeliers glowed like captured sunlight, scattering warm reflections across marble floors the color of champagne. Bellboys in crisp uniforms moved swiftly between guests, rolling silver luggage carts, their shoes clicking in perfect rhythm. Elena Marlowe stood just inside the entrance, clutching the handle of a heavy suitcase. Her reflection shimmered in the glass doors, messy chestnut hair, worn leather boots, and a coat that had seen better winters. She took a nervous breath. Her client's car was supposed to arrive 10 minutes ago. One late delivery, and the fashion house she freelanced for would drop her without hesitation. A sleek black Bentley purred to a stop at the curb. The man stepping out looked every bit the professional chauffeur, crisp white shirt, dark slacks, sleeves rolled to the elbows. Without hesitation, Elena hurried toward him. "Finally," she said, exhaling in relief. "Please, help me with these. They are samples for the show, so be careful." She gestured at the stack of garment bags. The man blinked, momentarily taken aback. His hair was tousled by the breeze, his jawline sharp against the morning light. Then, without a word, he reached for the luggage handle and lifted it easily. "Of course," he replied, voice calm, almost amused. "Thank you," Elena said quickly, already tapping her phone to check directions. "We need to be at the Palais Garnier before 9. Can you take the faster route along River Seine Avenue? I really cannot afford to be late." He gave a quiet nod and opened the car door for her with unexpected grace. Elena slid inside, distracted by the swirl of perfume and fabric samples filling the back seat. She did not notice the way he smiled faintly before walking around to the driver's side. As the Bentley rolled through Paris, sunlight streamed across her sketchbook resting on her lap. Pages of unfinished designs fluttered with each bump in the road, dreams drawn in pencil, stitched with hope. The man behind the wheel glanced through the mirror, his expression softening. "You designed these?" he asked. Elena looked up, surprised. "Oh, yes. Well, I try. Fashion design is my dream, though right now I am just a stylist's assistant." She gave a small laugh. "Dreams do not pay rent, unfortunately." He smiled. "Dreams build everything worth keeping." Something in his tone made her glance at him, curious. His eyes were steady, kind, but carried the weight of someone used to responsibility. She wondered why a driver would speak like that. Traffic slowed near the bridge, the river glittering beneath the morning sunday. Elena leaned back, exhaustion softening her features. "I really appreciate your help," she murmured. "People rarely bother to be kind anymore." He looked at her through the rearview mirror, and for a moment, the air between them shifted quiet, meaningful. "You might be surprised," he said gently. When they reached the theater, Elena gathered her things, still flustered but grateful. "Thank you again," she said, handing him a small folded bill. "Get yourself a coffee. You look like you need one." "No?" He accepted it with a polite nod, but when she turned away, a glimmer of amusement crossed his face. He watched her disappear into the crowd of models and designers, her coat flaring like a banner of courage against the morning light. As he looked down at the sketchbook page she had left on the seat, signed with her name in looping ink, Leonard Voss, heir to the Voss Group, smiled to himself. It seemed fate had just taken the wheel. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the thin curtains of Elena's tiny apartment on Rue de Lyon Street. The golden glow touched the cluttered table, where unpaid bills lay stacked beside her sketchbook. The smell of instant coffee filled the small space as she sat cross-legged on the bed, sewing the torn hem of a vintage jacket. Her phone buzzed. A reminder flashed. "Client fitting at Voss Gallery, 11:30. She sighed softly. That name again. Voss. The family behind half of Paris's luxury industry. Elena pulled her hair into a messy bun and looked around the cramped room. A single dress form stood in the corner, draped in fabric pinned with hope more than precision. One day, she whispered. This will not just be a dream. Her voice trembled between determination and doubt. As she stepped outside, the city was alive with sound horns, footsteps, and the distant melody of a street violinist. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of roasted coffee from the cafe downstairs. She clutched her tote bag, heavy with sketches and measuring tape, and hurried toward the metro station. Inside the train, she replayed yesterday in her mind the strange encounter with the man she thought was her driver. His quiet confidence, the kindness in his tone. She chuckled to herself. I really did boss him around, did I not? She murmured, shaking her head. But there was no way she could have known who he really was. To her, he was just a man helping out of courtesy. When she reached the Voss gallery, marble steps gleamed beneath her shoes. She hesitated, staring at her reflection in the grand glass doors. She smoothed her coat and walked in. The receptionist, wearing a black suit, looked up and smiled politely. Miss Marlowe, welcome. Mr. Voss is expecting you. Heir's stomach dropped. Mr. Voss? That name again. I am here for the fitting, she managed. Yes, of course, the receptionist said, motioning her toward the elevator. The ride to the top floor felt endless. Soft jazz played through the speakers. Elena's fingers gripped the strap of her tote as the doors slid open to reveal a sunlit studio filled with mannequins, fabrics, and a view of the Eiffel Tower shimmering in the distance. A voice came from behind her. You found the place. She turned and froze. Standing near the window, hands in his pockets, was the same man from the Bentley. The one she had ordered around like an assistant. His smile was calm, polite, but his eyes carried a spark of mischief. Her voice caught. You are Mr. Voss? He nodded lightly. Leonard Voss, though yesterday, I suppose, I was your chauffeur. Elena's cheeks flushed crimson. I am so sorry. I thought that I was there to carry your bags, he said, finishing her sentence with a faint grin. You were quite convincing. I almost started checking the tire pressure. She hid her face behind her hand, mortified. Oh my goodness, that is embarrassing. He laughed softly. Do not worry. It was refreshing. People usually do not speak to me like that, or at all, without a motive. His tone carried no arrogance, only quiet sincerity. The awkwardness melted just a little. I really did not mean. He lifted a hand. Please, no apology needed. I am glad we met, even if by mistake. Oh? Elena's heart skipped. She tried to focus on her work, arranging fabric samples on the table, but her fingers trembled slightly. Leonard moved closer, studying her sketches. You have an eye for detail, he said. This line, simple but powerful. She glanced up. You actually looked? Of course, he said, eyes steady on hers. You care about your work. That is rare. For a moment, the hum of the city faded. The only sound was the faint rustle of paper between them. Elena exhaled slowly, unsure why her chest felt tight. She came here to work, not to feel this whatever this was. Leonard stepped back, giving her space. Let me show you something, he said, gesturing toward a wall of fabric samples illuminated by sunlight. My mother built this collection before she passed. Every color you see is named after something she loved. I keep them here to remind myself where it all began. Elena touched the edge of a golden swatch, labeled Morning Promise. It is beautiful, she whispered. He smiled faintly. It reminds me of you, actually. Her eyes widened, unsure how to respond. Before she could speak, an assistant entered the room. Mr. Voss, your car is ready. Leonard nodded, turning to Elena. We will continue this later. I have a feeling our collaboration has just begun. As he left, Elena stood frozen, the golden fabric still between her fingers. For the first time in a long while, her heart felt like something she could not design, only discover. 2 days later, the morning rain painted soft ripples across the streets of Paris. Inside the small café on Montaigne Avenue, the windows fogged with warmth, while the city outside shimmered gold and gray. Elena sat near the corner table, a sketchbook open beside her cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Her pen moved in quick, focused strokes as she drew a gown inspired by yesterday's fabric, Morning Promise, the golden silk Leonard had shown her. She could still hear his voice describing it, calm yet full of quiet reverence. Every color has a story. Every creation holds a piece of its maker's heart. She smiled faintly and shook her head. Why was she thinking about him this much? He was her client, her boss, the heir of a billion-dollar empire. Men like Leonard Voss did not belong in the same world as girls who took the metro with coffee coupons. A voice interrupted her thoughts. "You draw fast," it said gently. Elena looked up, startled. Leonard stood at the door, rainwater glistening on his coat, holding 2 paper cups. "May I?" he asked. She blinked in disbelief but nodded. "You found me again?" He smiled. "I asked the receptionist at the gallery where your favorite place was. She said you come here every morning. I took a chance." He handed her one of the coffees. 2 sugars, no cream. "That is what you ordered last time." Her eyebrows rose. "You remembered?" "I remember small details," he said simply. "They tell more about a person than big gestures." He sat across from her, his presence filling the tiny corner with an ease that both comforted and unsettled her. "May I see what you are working on?" he asked. She hesitated, then turned the sketchbook toward him. "It is not finished." "Okay." He studied the page carefully. "It does not have to be. This line, see how it bends? It feels alive, like movement caught in stillness." Elena stared at him, surprised by the way he spoke about her work, not like a critic, but like someone who saw meaning where others saw flaws. She laughed softly. "You sound like an artist, not a businessman." "Maybe I am a little of both," Leonard replied, eyes warm. "My mother used to say business without beauty is just numbers." They talked for a while about fabrics, the art of tailoring, and how the right design could change how a person felt about themselves. The conversation flowed like music, effortless and real. For once, Elena forgot who she was speaking to. He was just Leonard, a man who listened. When the rain stopped, Leonard glanced at his watch. "Would you mind showing me your studio someday?" She almost choked on her coffee. "My studio?" He nodded. "You mentioned it the other day. I would love to see where your ideas come alive." Elena hesitated. Her studio was barely a room, just a corner of her apartment, but his expression was sincere. "It is nothing special," she warned. "Then it will be honest," he said. "That is what matters." Later that afternoon, they walked together through narrow cobblestone streets. The city felt softer somehow, as if the air itself approved of their strange friendship. When they reached her building, Elena's cheeks burned. The hallway smelled faintly of old wood and lavender cleaner. She opened the door to reveal her small world sketches pinned to the walls. Rolls of fabric leaning against the window, a mannequin wearing a half-sewn dress. Leonard stepped inside, his eyes tracing everything with quiet admiration. "This is you," he said. "Simple, focused, full of life." She laughed nervously. "It is small." "It is authentic," he replied. "That is rare." He paused near the window, where a single potted plant reached toward the afternoon Sunday. "You know," he said softly, "the first suit I ever designed was in a room smaller than this. I was 13. It fell apart the moment my father tried it on." She laughed, the sound light and genuine. "Then we are both learning as we go." He turned to face her, his expression thoughtful. "Elena, do not ever lose this fire. You have something people spend fortunes trying to buy: passion." Her heart fluttered in her chest, unsure what to do with his words. She busied herself adjusting fabric that did not need fixing. "Thank you," she whispered. As he moved toward the door, Leonard stopped. "You should show your designs. Paris Fashion Week is approaching. Submit one." She looked at him wide-eyed. "Me? They would never accept." "They might," he interrupted gently. "If you believe in your work as much as I do." When he left, the apartment felt strangely bright. She looked down at her sketchbook, where his words echoed in her mind. "If you believe in your work as much as I do." Elena picked up her pencil again. For the first time in years, her dream did not feel impossible. It felt like a promise waiting to be kept. A week later, Paris woke under a sky the color of polished silver. Inside the Voss gallery, preparations for the upcoming charity gala were in full swing. Seamstresses hurried between racks of gowns, stylists arranged accessories, and camera flashes sparkled like tiny stars. In the middle of the motion stood Elena, holding her sketchbook pressed against her chest. Leonard had kept his promise. He had submitted one of her designs under her name, placing it quietly in the showcase lineup. When the confirmation came, Elena had stared at the email for several minutes, unable to breathe. Her first public exhibition. Her first real chance. Now, standing among world-famous designers and guests dressed in couture, she felt small and out of place. Her hands trembled as she pinned the final thread on a golden gown. "Miss Marlowe, this piece is exquisite," said the coordinator beside her. "It carries the signature of a dreamer." Elena smiled faintly, whispering, "It carries the signature of hope." At the far end of the hall, Leonard entered dressed in a black tuxedo, the warm light catching the edge of his cufflinks. People turned, whispering, their tones full of reverence. He was not just an heir tonight. He was the host, the force behind the event. When their eyes met across the crowded room, Elena froze. He gave her a reassuring smile, a silent promise that she belonged there. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe it. As the evening unfolded, journalists surrounded Leonard, asking about innovation, design, and legacy. Yet his gaze kept drifting toward the display where her gown shimmered under the chandelier. When a reporter asked what inspired this year's theme, he answered simply, "The courage of those who create with nothing but faith." Elena felt a rush of warmth spread through her chest. No one had ever described her that way. Later, as the lights dimmed for the presentation, she found herself standing beside him. The orchestra began to play a soft waltz. Leonard leaned close, his voice low but sincere. "You see that? People are turning to look at your design. You did that, Elena." She shook her head slightly. "You made it possible." He smiled. "No, you made it real." The first model stepped onto the runway wearing Elena's gown. Gasps rippled through the audience as the golden fabric moved like liquid sunlight. Under the spotlight, every seam reflected her story, every sleepless night, every doubt, every moment she had almost given up. Tears stung her eyes as the applause began. Leonard clapped, his expression filled with quiet pride. "You see?" he said softly. "I told you Paris would listen." After the show, guests approached her, offering congratulations and business cards. Elena accepted them politely, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She found Leonard by the balcony, looking out at the city lights. "I owe you everything," she said quietly. He turned, shaking his head. "You owe me nothing. You had the talent long before I appeared. I only reminded you of it." For a moment, the noise from inside faded, leaving only the hum of the city below and the faint sound of violins. The golden light from the ballroom spilled across his face, softening the edges of his usual composure. "You know," he said, "I thought success would feel like control. But tonight, it feels more like letting go." Elena tilted her head. "Letting go of what?" He hesitated. "Of who I am supposed to be." Before she could answer, a photographer called his name. Leonard offered her a small, private smile. "Stay for the dinner after the show. I want you there." When he walked away, Elena leaned against the railing, her heart beating faster than the music inside. The city stretched out below her, a sea of gold and promise. She opened her sketchbook and wrote one line under her latest design. "The night Paris saw me." For the first time, she did not feel invisible, and somewhere deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. The following morning, sunlight slipped through the lace curtains of Elena's apartment, scattering tiny golden patterns across her sewing table. Empty coffee cups and rolls of fabric covered every inch of the wooden surface. She had fallen asleep there after the gala, still wearing the same dress from the night before. When her phone buzzed, she stirred awake, blinking in disbelief at the flood of messages. Fashion blogs, local newspapers, and online magazines, all of them were writing about her gown. Words like unexpected brilliance and fresh voice in Paris couture filled the headlines. Elena pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Her design, the one born from sleepless nights and quiet hope, had found its audience. A knock sounded at her door. She rushed to open it and froze when she saw Leonard standing there, holding 2 cups of cappuccino. "I thought congratulations are better served with coffee," he said with an easy smile. Elena laughed softly, stepping aside to let him in. "You did not have to come all the way here." "I wanted to," he said simply. "Yesterday was your night. You earned it." She set the cups down and glanced at him. "Everything happened so fast. It feels like a dream." Leonard looked around her small studio, his gaze lingering on the pinned sketches covering the walls. "Dreams start small," he said, "but when they are built with heart, they grow larger than the people who make them." Elena smiled faintly. "You always sound like you are quoting someone." He chuckled. "Maybe I am quoting the younger version of myself. The one who still believed success and happiness could exist in the same room." Something in his tone made her pause. She noticed the tiredness behind his calm expression. "You work too much," she said. "You should take a day off." "How?" "I do not remember the last time I did," he admitted. She hesitated, then offered shyly, "Then today will be that day. Come with me." A few hours later, they walked through the open-air market near Montmartre Street. The air carried the smell of roasted almonds and fresh bread. Leonard blended into the crowd easily in his simple jacket, though a few people still turned to look, recognizing him from magazine covers. They stopped at a small stand selling handmade scarves. Elena picked up a soft wool one, the color of warm honey. "This looks like something you would wear," she teased. He smiled. "Only if you choose it for me." She wrapped it around his neck, laughing when he pretended to shiver dramatically. For a moment, the world felt light. No expectations, no social walls, just two people enjoying a simple afternoon. They wandered into a nearby art exhibit where local painters displayed works inspired by the city. Elena paused before a canvas showing the River Seine under morning mist. "I used to draw this view when I was younger," she said softly. "It reminded me that beauty exists even when life feels empty." Leonard's gaze softened. "You still do that," he said. "You remind people of beauty they forget to see." Their eyes met, and something unspoken lingered between them, tender, fragile, and real. Elena turned away first, afraid her heart might give her away. As the day faded into evening, they sat on a bench overlooking the water. Streetlights flickered on, painting the ripples with gold. Leonard broke the silence. "There is something I have been meaning to tell you," he began, his tone careful. "My father has decided to return to Paris next week. He wants me to take full control of Voss Group. It means the press will start following me again. People will talk, and they might talk about you too." Elena frowned. "About me?" "They will wonder who you are," he said quietly. "They will dig into your life, your work, your past. I wanted to warn you." She stared at the river, unsure how to respond. "I do not care what they say," she whispered finally. "I just want to keep creating." Leonard nodded, but his eyes carried a storm of unspoken thoughts. "You have no idea how rare you are, Elena. You see me for who I am, not what I represent." She looked at him, her heart trembling. "That is because you let me." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I needed someone to remind me how." As the bells of St. Gabriel's Church chimed across the river, their hands brushed, hesitant at first, then still. For one quiet moment, time felt suspended, like the city itself was holding its breath. Neither of them spoke, but both knew something had changed. What began as a mistake had turned into something neither of them could deny. 3 nights later, the grand ballroom of the Hôtel du Louvre glittered with chandeliers and champagne light. The annual Voss Foundation Charity Gala had drawn Paris's most powerful names: royalty, journalists, socialites, and designers. A golden banner stretched across the entrance. An evening for hope. Elena stood near the edge of the room, her heart thudding beneath the fabric of her simple but elegant gown. It was her first official invitation to a high society event, and she could still hardly believe her name was printed on the guest list. The sound of violins floated through the air, mingling with laughter and the soft clinking of glasses. She caught sight of Leonard across the room, surrounded by guests and photographers. He wore a black tuxedo, his posture composed yet distant. When their eyes met, he smiled a subtle, knowing curve that sent warmth straight to her chest. "Miss Marlowe," said a woman beside her, breaking the moment. "You must be the new designer everyone is whispering about." The woman extended a jeweled hand. "Claudette Beaumont. I used to work with Leonard's mother. You are quite the talk of Paris tonight." Elena shook her hand politely. "That is kind of you to say. I am just grateful for the opportunity." Claudette smiled faintly, but her tone carried curiosity. "Tell me, dear, how exactly did you meet Leonard? People are very intrigued." Elena hesitated. "It was unexpected." "Ah," Claudette said, eyes sharp. "Most great stories are. Before the conversation could continue, Leonard approached. "Claudette," he greeted smoothly. "You are as radiant as ever." "Leonard," she replied with a hint of mischief. "Your taste in company has improved, I see." He only smiled. Elena's work speaks for itself. Then he turned to Elena. "Would you join me for a moment?" He led her through the crowd toward a quieter terrace overlooking the Seine River. The city shimmered below them, bathed in amber light. "How are you holding up?" he asked gently. "I am trying not to trip on the carpet," she said, smiling nervously. "Everyone here looks like they belong in magazines." He chuckled. "You belong more than anyone. You earned your place." They stood in silence for a moment, the night air cool against their skin. Then Leonard's voice softened. "My father arrives tomorrow. The board will be watching closely. There will be questions about my personal life, my choices. About you." Elena frowned. "Do I make things difficult for you?" He shook his head. "You make them clear. I just need to be honest with them and with myself." Inside, the orchestra changed to a slower melody. Through the open doors, they could see couples dancing under crystal lights. Leonard extended his hand. "Dance with me?" Elena hesitated. "I do not know if I can keep up." He smiled. "Then let me follow your rhythm." She placed her hand in his, and they stepped onto the polished marble floor. The world around them blurred into gold and motion. For those few minutes, it did not matter who he was or what the headlines might say. It was just two people moving together, their steps quiet but certain. When the song ended, applause filled the room. Elena felt her heart racing as they stopped, still close enough to feel each other's breath. Then, as if on cue, the host's voice echoed through the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome tonight's guest of honor, Mr. Leonard Voss, heir of the Voss Group and founder of this year's foundation initiative." Elena froze. Guests turned toward the stage, cameras flashing. Leonard squeezed her hand gently before letting go. "I will be right back," he whispered. She watched as he walked up the steps, confidence radiating from him. The applause swelled, and her chest tightened. As he spoke to the crowd, his words filled the room with sincerity about compassion, art, and second chances. But when his eyes found her across the ballroom, Elena realized something she had been afraid to admit, even to herself. She was falling in love with him. The man she had once mistaken for a driver now stood beneath golden lights, speaking to a world that adored him. And all she could think was how kind his eyes looked when he was not pretending to be anyone but himself. When the speech ended, thunderous applause followed. Leonard stepped down from the stage and walked toward her. Cameras turned, flashes bright as stars. For a heartbeat, it felt like the entire room vanished, leaving only the two of them connected by a single, unforgettable mistake that had somehow become the most beautiful truth of her life. The next morning, the world looked different. The newspapers that usually printed stories about politics and finance now carried one picture on nearly every front page: Leonard Voss, the billionaire heir, standing beside a mysterious woman in a golden gown. The headline read, "The designer who stole Paris's heart and the heir's attention." Elena stared at the paper through the cafe window, her stomach twisting. She could still smell the fresh ink and hear the quiet buzz of gossip from nearby tables. It did not take long before her phone started ringing. Her social media had exploded overnight, hundreds of messages, some kind and supportive, others cruel and mocking. She turned off her phone and pressed her palms against her temples. The city she had loved now felt too loud. The night at the gala had been perfect, but this morning it felt like the price of that perfection had finally arrived. When the cafe door opened, she looked up and saw Leonard. He looked tired but calm, dressed simply in a gray coat. "You saw it," he said quietly. Elena nodded, her throat tight. "They make it sound like I planned this, like I used you." Leonard sat across from her, his gaze steady. "Let them talk. They always need a story. We know the truth." She shook her head. "You do not understand. I am not built for this kind of world. I just wanted to design dresses, not be a headline." "I know," he said softly, "and I am sorry I brought this storm to your door." The sincerity in his voice almost broke her. "You did not," she said. "I walked right into it." For a long moment, they sat in silence while the city moved on around them. Then Leonard reached into his coat pocket and placed something on the table, a small silver pendant in the shape of a thread and needle. "My mother used to wear this," he said. "She said it reminded her that even broken things can be mended if someone cares enough to try." Elena touched it gently, tears stinging her eyes. "Leonard, people are going to keep asking questions. About us, about me." He leaned forward. "Then I will answer them. You do not have to hide." Before she could respond, the cafe television switched to a news broadcast. The anchor's voice echoed through the small space. "In an unexpected statement this morning, Mr. Arthur Voss, chairman of the Voss Group, announced that he will be returning to oversee company leadership after reports surfaced about his son's personal involvement with an unknown designer." Elena froze. Leonard's jaw tightened. "So it begins," he murmured. Later that day, she arrived at the Voss headquarters to drop off her design sketches. The security guards recognized her instantly, whispering to each other as she passed. When she entered the main lobby, she saw Leonard standing at the far end, with his father, a tall, silver-haired man with a sharp gaze that could cut through glass. Arthur Voss turned as she approached, his expression unreadable. "Miss Marlowe," he said in a voice that carried authority and distance. "You are the young woman everyone is talking about." Elena swallowed. "Good afternoon, Mr. Voss." My son speaks highly of your work," he continued. "But publicity can be dangerous. We cannot afford distractions in this family." Leonard stepped in. "Father, she is not a distraction." Arthur's tone remained cold. "Then prove it, Leonard. Show me that your choices serve this company, not your emotions." Elena looked between them, feeling suddenly out of place. "Perhaps I should go," she whispered. Leonard turned to her quickly. "No, stay. You have every right to be here." Arthur's eyes narrowed. "Every right? Do not forget who built this empire, Leonard. Do not throw it away over a passing infatuation." The words struck deeper than either of them expected. Elena stepped back, her heart aching. "I will not be the reason for a family argument," she said quietly. Leonard reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "Elena, I need time," she said, her voice trembling. "To think, to breathe." "Who?" She walked out of the building into the cold afternoon air, her pulse echoing in her ears. Paris seemed to fade into gray around her. For the first time since their fateful meeting, she felt the weight of the world that separated them. The golden glow of their story had dimmed, replaced by shadows of doubt and distance. Yet even as she walked away, the silver pendant in her hand felt warm against her skin, a quiet reminder that even broken things could be mended. Days turned into a week, and Paris seemed colder without its golden glow. The headlines had begun to fade, replaced by new scandals and fresher gossip, but for Elena, the noise inside her heart remained. She spent her days at her sewing table, stitching quietly, the sound of the needle breaking the silence of her apartment. Each pull of the thread was an attempt to calm the storm inside her. She had not seen Leonard since that day, at the Voss headquarters. The memory of his father's harsh words still echoed in her mind. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the look on Leonard's face, hurt, helpless, and full of things he could not say in front of his father. One afternoon, as she was pinning a dress on her mannequin, there was a knock at her door. When she opened it, she found a young courier holding a white envelope sealed with a gold crest. "Delivery for Miss Elena Marlowe," he said politely. She thanked him and closed the door, her fingers trembling as she broke the seal. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Elena, my father has decided to step back again, but only after I proved that the company could stand on its values, not its image. For the past week, I have been rebuilding from the inside, showing him that the heart of Voss Group lies in its people, not its power. Your designs have inspired that change. The board has approved a new division called Open Atelier, a space for independent designers to collaborate and create freely. It is yours, if you want it. You once said you just wanted to create. Now you can. Yours, Leonard." The letter ended with a single line written beneath his signature. "Even broken things can be mended." Tears blurred her vision. She folded the letter carefully and pressed it to her chest. For the first time in days, she felt warmth again. The following morning, she took the metro to the address written at the bottom of the page, an old factory near Montmartre Street, transformed into a wide-open studio bathed in sunlight. Rows of sewing machines gleamed beneath skylights. Rolls of fabric lined the walls like rainbows waiting to be born. Leonard stood near one of the tables, dressed in a white shirt with his sleeves rolled up, helping a worker carry bolts of fabric. He looked up when he saw her and smiled softly. "I was hoping you would come." Elena stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "You did all this?" "With you in mind," he said. "You once told me you wanted a place where creativity mattered more than status. I wanted to build that world for you because you showed me it was possible." She looked around the bright room, filled with quiet energy and the scent of new beginnings. "It is beautiful," she said. "It feels alive." Leonard nodded. "It belongs to you as much as it does to me. I want you to lead this division, to bring in artists who need a chance like you once did." Elena hesitated. "Leonard, after everything that happened, after what your father said," he shook his head gently. "My father was wrong. Power means nothing if it is used to silence what is good. I told him that the future of our family's name will be built by kindness, not fear." She smiled, her heart full. "You really said that?" He nodded. "And I meant it." For a long moment, they stood together in the golden light streaming through the windows. The city outside buzzed faintly, but here, in this room, everything felt still, like time had paused to listen. Elena reached into her pocket and pulled out the small silver pendant he had given her. She placed it on the table between them. "You said broken things can be mended," she said softly. "Maybe that includes us too." Leonard's eyes softened. "I hope so," he replied. "Because every step forward I take, I want to take it with you." She looked at him, her eyes glistening with quiet tears. "Then let us begin again." Outside, the bells of St. Gabriel's Church rang in the distance, echoing through the streets of Paris. The golden light spilled through the windows, wrapping them both in warmth. It felt like forgiveness. It felt like a promise. And this time, it was no mistake. 1 year later, Paris glowed in the soft light of early spring. The courtyard of the open atelier was filled with laughter, music, and the rustle of silk. Dozens of young designers displayed their first collections, each piece carrying the quiet courage of those who had once been told they were not enough. Elena stood near the entrance, wearing a white dress she had designed herself. Her hands were steady now, her smile calm. Across the courtyard, Leonard spoke with a group of guests, his expression proud and relaxed. When he saw her, his eyes softened, and the noise around them seemed to fade. He walked over, holding something behind his back. "You forgot this," he said with a grin. He opened his hand to reveal a small sketchbook, its corners worn, its pages filled with the dreams that had started everything. Elena laughed softly. "You kept it all this time?" "I told you," he said. "It was the first thing that made me believe again." She opened the book, and on the last page, a note had been added in his handwriting. "For the woman who turned a mistake into a masterpiece." Her eyes filled with tears. "Leonard, you did not have to." He shook his head gently. "Yes, I did. Because this story began with one misunderstanding, but it taught me everything about truth." The music shifted to a slow melody. Leonard took her hand and led her toward the center of the courtyard. The guests stepped aside, watching as they began to dance under strings of golden lights. "I remember the first time we danced," he said softly. "You were afraid to step on my shoes." She smiled. "I still am," he laughed quietly. "Then step closer." As they moved together, the bells of St. Gabriel's Church rang in the distance, echoing through the Paris air. The golden lights shimmered on their faces, and for a moment, it felt as if the entire city was celebrating with them. Leonard reached into his pocket and took out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple ring, elegant and bright. "Elena Marlowe," he said, his voice full of warmth. "Will you let me be the man who carries your dreams, not your luggage?" Tears slipped down her cheeks as she whispered, "Yes." Applause erupted around them, but all she could see was him, the man she had once mistaken for a driver, now the one she would choose every day. In that golden courtyard, surrounded by the light of everything they had built together, Elena realized the truth she had been searching for since the day they met. Some mistakes are not meant to be erased. They are meant to lead us home.